Good morning, everybody. Today we're talking about something reported on the Mark Dolan show. The report is that Meghan Markle is being sued for $12 million over something that happened on her With Love Meghan cooking show, or not cooking show. So I'll tell you a little bit of the background and the facts, and then I will give you my opinion as a lawyer. This is just my personal opinion as a lawyer. How this might play out. So the situation is, remember on that show she created this this concoction, bath salt concoction, and she packaged it up for her guest. I think it was Daniel, the crying makeup artist. She packaged it up and she left it in the guest room, supposedly for him as a guest, as a gift when he came to stay with her. And so the allegation from a lady called Robin Patrick is that she followed the recipe provided by Meghan on her show for the bath salts. She's a great fan of Meghan. She followed the recipe. She had it in a bath, and it actually resulted in her having such severe burns that her skin is ulcerated, open sores. She can't wear clothing on certain parts of her body. And so she said when she first stepped into the bath, there was a bit of a tingling sensation, but as she lowered herself further into the bath, she felt a little bit of a burning sensation. Later on, she got out of the bath and she showered to get the stuff off her, and then it was even worse. And then she put her hand in the bathtub. I don't know if she wanted to stir it around or pull out the plug or whatever she was doing, and it burnt her hand as well. Now, this is a lady who's got an autoimmune condition and pre-existing diabetes. And so her lawyer has written to Meghan saying, you need to pay for my client's medical bills and pain and suffering. And so the medical bills apparently that they're claiming is $100,000, and then the whole claim is $12 million. Now, it is quite usual in these types of cases. For example, if I was acting for Meghan, I would be saying to the Patrick lady, or Mrs. Patrick, I would be saying to her, show us your legal bills, because then we can negotiate something or come to some kind of an agreement. You never admit liability on the part of your client, but, there could be something there. Anyway, Meghan's lawyer has fired back, unsurprisingly, and the response has been, no, got nothing to do with my client. She put this recipe out on the internet, on the airwaves for everybody to use, but it's not her fault. It's not her fault because if you've got diabetes, you're not supposed to use Epsom salts. Apparently, there's some small print on the Epsom salt packaging. And anyway, so she did that of her own. That's her own risk. And anyway, even if the combination of stuff, they denying that the combination of stuff would cause any burns or ulcerations. They're saying it is unforeseeable that this would have happened. Now, I wish that I was Mrs. Patrick's lawyer, because with that argument as a defense, I would have an absolute field day. And do you know why? Because anybody who's interested in Meghan Markle, who watched any of the YouTube videos after the terrible cooking show, there were hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of videos online from either people in the healthcare industry or even just common sense people saying, man, that doesn't sound like a good combination. Oof, Epsom salts and I think she said Himalaya salts and arnica oil, and how much she was just chugging in. Thousands, hundreds of thousands possibly, of videos saying, please don't do this. This is really bad advice. This could burn your skin. Don't do this. So the argument that this was unforeseeable is complete rubbish. Objectively, from what other people were saying online at the time, even people who are not experts in that field, objectively, it was reasonably foreseeable. So, and Meghan was just reckless. And a lot of people at the time said that this could happen, and now it has tragically happened. Excuse me. So, where do I think this is going to go? Part of the difficulty for Mrs. Patrick is that we know that Meghan and Harry have got endless amounts of money to pour into litigation matters. So it could be a case of who's got more money, and that in law, unfortunately, that sometimes tips the scales. So Mrs. Patrick might run out of money and then not be able to take the case further. However, with personal injuries cases, which is what this is, she was personally injured, there are a lot of lawyers who will take the case on a contingency basis. Basically, they don't charge you any money for their time, but if they win, then they take a percentage of the fee. But it's not completely free, because usually there might be expenses like court filing fees and things that have to be paid out along the way, and then usually the client has to still pay those. However, she can probably get a funding, a legal funding arrangement. There are businesses that actually fund legal cases if the case is a strong case, and particularly in a situation like this, where you know that if you win, the other side will actually have money to pay you out. So it's no good suing, I don't know, the greengrocer who owns a little store, or a teacher, or somebody like that who's got limited means. And even if you win against them, you're not going to be able to recover much money from them because they don't have much. But in this case, Meghan obviously is famous for flaunting her riches. If the case does go ahead, some interesting things that could happen. If we could get a look behind the scenes of certain things. So when the case proceeds, what happens is you go through this stage called discovery. And in discovery, each side is allowed to get a look at the other side's documentation or materials behind the scenes. So we might see emails between Meghan and the producers of the show. We might see rough drafts of who came up with this idea. Did Meghan decide she wanted to add this in, and did Netflix resist it? Did Netflix suggest that it wasn't a good idea? Did Meghan go ahead anyway? What was the discussions behind the scenes as to whether this was a good idea? And did anybody behind the scenes, even an assistant, anybody, point out to Meghan that this could potentially be harmful to the viewers? Because when it's on TV and somebody like Meghan is seen by some as an authority figure, people will just copy what they see. There was no health warnings on the episode, so that would be really fascinating to see how things went behind the scenes, and whether Meghan was pushy to want to have her wonderful bath salt recipe included in the show. That would be very interesting, because if that happens, then the courts are not going to be sympathetic to her at all if she had pre-knowledge. So that could increase the amount of damages. And how much damages do I think the person could get? Well, I'm in Australia, and in Australia we have damages are pretty small, irrespective of the type of cases. So some of my colleagues work in personal injuries, and recently one of my colleagues got a settlement for $900,000 for a pretty severe injury. That's to cover the person's medical expenses going forward and loss of income. So it's not a massive amount compared to the US. Really does crank that up. And I would imagine that Meghan, being a public figure, speaking authoritatively as though she is an expert in this field on a TV show hosted by Netflix, it's not like she picked up her video camera and recorded herself for Instagram. So having Netflix's backing, that would also add credibility to what she was saying. So I think that this the $12 million is eminently reachable. I think the legal strategy that the lawyer is trying to have behind the scenes is to go for a big amount, but then be prepared to settle for something much less. In that type of situation, how much would it cost Meghan in legal fees if this went to court and went the whole way through to hearings and evidence and the whole thing? Easily $1 to $2 million in legal fees and experts' fees and that kind of thing. Also, once a decision is issued, then either party can appeal, and we know Harry personally likes to appeal a lot. So if it went against Meghan, she could get it appealed. So she could really tie it up for years and years and years in litigation. But it's not going to be a good look. Here she's trying to portray herself as this homebody and this loving mother, but she's got a recipe on Netflix that has really, really damaged this person. If we take the claim at face value, and there's no reason to doubt that this actually did happen. And no doubt there will be medical records and photographs of a gruesome nature to back up this lady's claim. So assuming that exists. What would my advice to Meghan be? My advice would have been, before this even got made public, just to very quietly make a confidential settlement, not admit any liability. The problem is now, this could actually open the floodgates. And if her lawyer was smart, they might call for, has anybody else been injured or damaged? There might be people who've had less damages or less injury by using Meghan's concoction. And if they come forward, this could be a class action lawsuit, not only against Meghan, but against Netflix as well, because that's who I would be suing as well. As the streaming platform who created the show and who showed the show, they bear some responsibility as well. And I wonder what their process was and why they were so reckless in allowing that episode to air, because anybody with even a modicum of common sense would know that these materials that Meghan was throwing together could potentially be harmful. You know from your science class at school, a certain substance might be safe on its own, but when you add it together with other substances, it could cause a really adverse reaction. So Netflix really had a duty of care, as did Meghan, in my view, to make sure that what they put forward and what they put out to the public was not going to be harmful. So what do you think? Do you think Meghan really will be sued? Do you think Mrs. Patrick's got the money, or she's got maybe a lawyer who's going to do it on contingency? Where do you see this going? And this could really be a thorn in the side for Meghan, especially as we know from the interview with Jamie Kernlina, where she said, "Oh, I'm the happiest I've ever been." Unfortunately for Meghan, that's not going to last. I will keep you updated as this story progresses. Have a fantastic day.